Gold runs in the Beets family, but no one expected this. For years, Mike Beets worked under the shadow of his legendary father, Tony, operating heavy machinery, managing crews, keeping the family's gold mining empire running. Unlike his outspoken siblings, he stayed out of the spotlight, quietly building something of his own. While his father's fortune soared to $15 million, Mike's net worth was just a fraction of that. Until now. After years of relentless work in the unforgiving Yukon, he left behind something that would change everything. It wasn't just about gold. It was about legacy, sacrifice, and a final surprise that shook the entire Beets family to their core. So what exactly did Mike leave behind? And why did it have such a powerful impact on those closest to him? Mike Beets has spent his entire life surrounded by gold, not just in the ground, but in the family business that made the Beets name famous. As the second youngest in a mining dynasty led by his father, Tony Beets, the legendary $15 million Klondike king, Mike grew up immersed in the world of gold mining. While his siblings, Kevin and Monica, carved their own paths in the gold mining empire, Mike became the crew's heavy machinery expert, the guy who handles the toughest jobs. Need a 40-ton crane moved? A multi-million-dollar wash plant transported? Mike's the one behind the controls, making sure the operation never grinds to a halt. But here's the twist. Despite his skills, his fortune is shockingly small compared to his father's. Just $200,000. That's less than 2% of Tony's wealth. Even his brother Kevin is worth $2 million. So why is Mike, the backbone of the operation, still fighting to prove himself? The Beets family isn't some corporate operation with boardrooms and investors. This is a dynasty built on hard work, risk, and a little bit of luck. Tony, a Dutch immigrant, arrived in Canada with a dream and turned it into a gold mining empire, and he made sure his kids worked just as hard as any miner. For Mike, that meant waking up at dawn, working in freezing conditions, and taking on the most brutal jobs. By his late teens, he was running heavy machinery like a pro, moving dredges, handling equipment worth millions. But here's the reality. Tony Beets is still the boss. Unlike Kevin and Monica, who've taken on leadership roles, Mike remains in his father's shadow. He's respected, he's skilled, but he doesn't own the operation. That means he earns a miner's wage, not an owner's fortune. Now let's talk numbers. Mining isn't cheap, and neither is running a crew the size of Team Beets. Mike's salary? Around $25,000 per episode of Gold Rush. That's roughly $500,000 a season, a solid paycheck, but nowhere near what Tony makes from the business itself. Outside of TV, Mike's income comes from his hands-on work at the mine, which is far less lucrative than the deals his father and siblings cut. The gap is obvious. Kevin and Monica? They're decision-makers. Mike? He's the one doing the heavy lifting, literally. But here's something you might not expect. Mike Beets isn't just a miner. When he's not hauling gold-rich dirt across the Yukon, he's suiting up in 60 pounds of armor for full-contact medieval combat. Yes, real sword fights. It's a hobby that sets him apart from the rest of the Beets clan. While Tony and Kevin obsess over gold, Mike spends his downtime training for tournaments, swinging swords, and living a double life. Mining by day, night by night. It's a fascinating contrast, one that shows there's more to Mike than just gold. Back in the mining world, though, things aren't always smooth between Mike and Tony. They've had their fair share of blow-ups, like the time a trommel shut down unexpectedly, and Tony expected Mike to fix it immediately. When Mike hesitated, Tony's message was clear. Mining isn't about excuses. It's about getting the job done. That's been the theme of Mike's career. He's talented, he's hardworking, but unlike Kevin, who stepped up as a leader, Mike is still proving himself. And then came the disaster that nearly cost them everything. Mike was hauling a $300,000 wash plant, one of the most critical pieces of equipment on site. It should have been routine. Load it up, drive 20 miles, get it running. A 4-hour job max. But in gold mining, nothing's ever that easy. Halfway there, a securing chain snapped. The wash plant tilted, then crashed off the trailer, slamming into the rocky ground. A $250,000 machine, now on its side, potentially wrecked. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a season-ending crisis. Tony didn't wait. He assembled a recovery crew with 2 massive front-end loaders. The plan? Hook chains to the plant, lift it slowly, and guide it back onto its base. without causing more damage. One wrong move, and they'd be looking at weeks of delays. Mike climbed into a loader, taking control of the operation. The first pull strained the chains to their limits. The plant resisted, its weight buried in dirt. But inch by inch, it began to move. The tension was unbearable. One slip and the entire structure could tip the wrong way. Irreversible damage. Finally, with one last pull, the wash plant thudded back onto its base. Relief flooded the crew. The structure was upright, but was it still usable? Dents, scratches, bent beams. But the core components were intact. Against all odds, they'd salvaged it. The crew double-checked every chain, every bolt, before attempting the transport again. This time they moved like they were carrying glass. 8 grueling hours later, the wash plant arrived at Dominion Creek. The season was saved, but this wasn't Mike's only brush with disaster. On the treacherous road to Indian River, his 15-ton semi-truck hit a wet patch mid-climb. The back wheels lost traction. The truck started sliding sideways toward the edge. For a few heart-stopping seconds, it looked like the whole rig would go over. But Mike kept his cool. He braced the truck, radioed for help, and his brother Kevin rushed in with another vehicle to anchor it. A heavy-duty chain secured the truck, and with a coordinated pull, they stabilized it. Another crisis averted. This is the life Mike Beets lives. 1 minute, he's battling the elements to keep the mine running. The next, he's in armor, swinging a sword. He's a man of contradictions, loyal to his family but carving his own path. And while his mining career is public, his personal life is a mystery. No wife, no confirmed relationships, no social media, just the job, the grind, the gold. So what's next for Mike Beets? With Tony still leading the empire, Mike has the skills to take over one day. But will he want to? He's never sought the spotlight. He's never talked about long-term plans. But one thing's certain. Whatever he chooses, he'll do it on his terms. Because Mike Beets isn't just Tony's son. He's a leader, a warrior, a man who spent his life in the shadow of a legend, but who's quietly built a legacy of his own. Think you know the Beets family? Think again. Because what Mike left behind wasn't gold. It was something far more valuable. Hit subscribe right now. You won't believe what happens next. Gold comes and goes. But legacy? That lasts forever. Mike Beets may not have his father's fortune, but he's got something no amount of money can buy. Respect, skill, and a name that'll echo through the Yukon long after the last nugget's dug up. So the real question isn't, what did Mike leave behind? It's, what will you remember him for?